wouldn't let come because there's too much work. So they all know about it and really helped us with the presentation today. But if you want me to get started, Steve,
yes,
this
please,
is our
Cindy.
first in a series where you will be talking with each one of the department heads from Pitkin County, and so we decided to go first, and we actually forgot it was the day after a holiday, so this morning a lot of us are trying to remember what we do after a long weekend. But we wanted to let you know that the concept here is that it's very casual, and if you have things you want to talk about with community development, please bring those up. This is supposed to be, you know, just a very informal format, but as we started thinking about our hour with you, we thought, you know, we really have things we want to get into and some discussions because you already know us. So we put some pictures up to show you who we are and the divisions of community development with, you know, our administrative division, planning and zoning and building and environmental health. So we put everybody's picture up to let you know, and then we put one up to kind of throw you to let you see if you actually do know us. Do you know who that guy is? And that leads me right into the fact that we are cranking along, and environmental health has had numerous things come up that are unanticipated, which is pretty reflective of what we do on a daily basis. A lot of things that come up are unanticipated. So we have not only the day-to-day work that we're, you know, getting done, but things like asbestos and the need to put on your hazmat suit, or gas spills in recently, you know, up in Snowmass. Those are the Capitol Creek. Those are the things that, you know, take some time and take us away from our desk and take us away from the applications and permits that we also need to get done on a daily basis. One of the things that I wanted to show you is that we are working every day on work plans. I don't think that's showing up very well. There it is. That's just a snapshot. We didn't expect you to really get into it. A snapshot of the type of work plan that we have for each one of the divisions. And this is important in our discussion because that one happens to be building. And what we've done is we've tried to anticipate all the things that we need to do, projects that are on top of administering the building codes, projects that we need in terms of creating new building codes that are specific to us. So we have to readopt, bring those before the public, bring those before you. It takes time. We do it about once every 3 years. We're hopefully going to be reviewing all of the 2015 codes this year with adoption in 2016. So it takes some time, and because there's a lot of amendments that are very specific to Pitkin County. And on top of that, you can see right there, I think there's 11 various projects, and we just wanted to let you know that that's going to play into this discussion a little bit about how we accomplish what our mission is and what our goal is. In terms of trying to work on not only the work plans that we have to get done, the way we do our work and the structural issues of how we do our work are really important. And you may recall a time when your agendas were packed with land use items, and it was impossible to get on your agendas. People were waiting because there were just so many land use items. And I'll let Lance speak a little bit to that, but we did a rehaul, if you will, of the planning structure for review, of course, with the rewrite of the code and the board's approval. But we've rearranged it so that what you don't see is behind the scenes, staff is doing 60% of the review of the applications now in the planning. So our other boards, such as the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Hearing Officer, don't really see as much on their agendas like with your agendas. There's much fewer, there are many fewer items on the agenda. So Lance might want to talk a little bit about why we did that and how we did that, because if you recall, there was quite a bottleneck there for a while.
Yeah, just briefly, we average over the last 8 years 141 land use applications a year. Of course, that was in 2007 and 8, that was unprecedentedly huge. And then 2009, quite low. and then it's coming back to be more stable about the 130, 140 applications per year. Though mostly that's Suzanne and Mike and me doing administrative determinations that you don't see. And when you wonder what's on your agenda versus what's happening in the department, that's really kind of a good summary that you see about 20% of the total land use applications. You of course see code amendments and rezonings and subdivisions, special reviews, but that's about all that you see. All the site plan reviews, what we used to call the 1041 hazard reviews, all of those things are done administratively, and you only see them if there's an appeal of some kind, and there very seldom is. The hearing officer gets about 10% of the applications, and what that amounts to is the site plan applications where someone is requesting use of TDRs. And that does not happen that often. Maybe 12 a year or something like that is about how many hearing officer applications there are. And of course the Planning and Zoning Commission is primarily consumed with master planning, and the only things left that they see are code amendments, rezonings that then go on to you, growth management, scoring, which they do independently, and the rest of their work is pretty much master plans. They no longer see the site plans. Reason being that originally when I first came here, what we call 1041 hazard reviews were going to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the board. It would take 9 to 12 months for someone to get through that process. Then it was just the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission had these huge agendas. Then the board said, well, we want to do it alone, and so then we were just bringing them to the Board of County Commissioners. And that meant that your agendas were relatively huge. So in 2006 is when we made all of what used to be called 1041 reviews and what is now called site plan reviews administrative. And I think that's working really, really well, because when we wrote the new code in 2006, now 10 years old, but still the new code, when we wrote that, we really got enough specific standards that I think everyone was comfortable that it could be administered by staff. And there wasn't that much need for policy direction because the code itself provided that policy direction. So now 60% of the reviews that we're doing still takes, we tell people 60 to 90 days. That's what it really takes to get the notice period done, the comment period from adjoining neighbors, and for us to actually prepare the approval. But that's where the majority of the work is. We foresee this number of applications being pretty stable for the next few years. We don't anticipate a big upswing or a downswing. So that's what planning is doing. And you're all really very familiar with that.
The other part that I'll just jump right in on that with the long range planning, and what Ellen's doing a lot of right now is not only working on the master plans with the caucus groups, but we are looking at the Castle Creek Valley with the U.S. Forest Service as kind of a special area in that project. And we are also trying very hard to update our websites so that they're more interactive on the long range, not only the demographics, but where you might be in a planning process, and working with Pick and Connect with Pat. Ellen's been working to try to get more of the hot topic items on Pick and Connect so that people can actually come in and give their opinions and talk about it if they're not meeting-going types of people and they want to have their input. So that's where we are with that. But in general, Ellen, a little bit more over to the side. In general, this is kind of a graphic, I think, that really explains, and I thank Tammy Cochin in our office for putting this together. It's the spigot with our hose, and if you can't read that, the community development hose, the hose part says community development staff capacity, And you can see there's a little pressure valve at the bottom. And then the spigot's just letting it all out with all the tasks that have to happen there. And we'll get into this in a little bit more detail and hopefully have some discussion about it. But ironically, you know, all these years we've had growth management in the community. We've never had growth management internally in our office. We don't have a limit to the amount of input as far as building permits that are coming in the door. We never have. Growth management was really it more affected the new development. It didn't affect what could be built in any given year. It affected how many new lots could get created. But as you'll see with this bar chart that we have, it shows that through the years, and I think that chart goes from 2005 all the way over to the first quarter of 2015, the green lines on that bar chart are the most indicative of what's going on. That's the remodel. We don't have a lot of new properties and new in the building permit, in the building department. We don't have as many applications for new homes per se. It's a lot of remodel, and the trend is to the remodel or the redevelopment of properties. So that's where we're heading again. We obviously were the last 2 years, and we're heading again this year. And so it's not new development, it's redevelopment and intensity of that redevelopment that we're looking at. And so
Cindy, let me ask you a question. So when you say a remodel, so can that be from an old foundation up? So that could be the replacement of an entire house?
It could be, but Brian, there's standards. We're just calling them redevelopment.
Right.
But for a remodel, the standard for a remodel, we used to have a 30% left or something.
Yes, there is, it's a zoning standard more than a building standard, but, and recently we had somebody they started out doing a remodel and then decided to scrape it entirely off. We made them pull a new permit for tracking purposes, so I think if they went 100% scrape off down to the foundation, that would be a new permit.
That would be a new project, not a remodel.
Correct.
But, so remodels can be fairly extensive.
Yes.
We're not talking about a closet and a bathroom. We could be talking about 3/4 of a house.
We could be, and you know, we have everything from, this weekend I spent a little bit of time, because we have people that work on the weekends to actually be able to get stuff done outside of the normal work day, because if you can have some focus time, we can get more permits out. And Tony Popish was in the office this weekend, and we talked a little bit about, we have everything, you know, from a chicken coop to you know, massive remodels, and we're going to show you a picture in a minute of the 100-page change order on a remodel. And that's the
like
kind
the
of
start
thing
of
that we're looking at. You think change order, no, in my mind it's, oh, it's a change order. They're changing, you know,
Doorknobs.
a wall, or they're changing, you know, a faucet. And no, I mean, they can be substantial change orders. So, you know, Brian, did you want to add anything to
No, I
that
just was
at this
agreeing.
point? We have also some pictures we wanted to show you as we move along showing you kind of what's on our plate.
So could you quantify that remodel in terms of square feet? In other words, you have those 49 remodels or something, and that is equal to 10,000 square feet.
We
Or-
can.
Because I think, you know, it's nice to know remodel, but you don't get the intensity of it if you just say, I have this number of remodels, but if I have 1 year 20,000 square feet of remodel and the next year 120,000, then you get a sense of what it means.
Right.
So for 2014, it was just over 52,000 square feet. That was included in that remodel number.
In that remodel. So that's a tracking number that's, I think, interesting.
The airport terminal.
It is interesting. And actually, Ellen, let's see, we did the bar chart. Yeah, go ahead.
So when we started putting this presentation together, Cindy kind of asked me to kind of make a mental list or an actual list of what the building department does. So I just kind of made a list of all the duties we do. We're not just doing plan review and we're not just doing inspections, but that's just kind of an idea of all the things that can happen in any given day, any given year in the building department. So the next slide just kind of goes on to just go into We talk about comparing to 2007 as our banner year.
Let me just, I saw code enforcement up there. So the attorney's office has a code enforcement officer. Do you have, well, in theory, do you have a code enforcement officer?
Carrington worked with all of us.
So that's what you're talking about, Carrington's function? No.
No.
Okay.
Building's always kind of done our own unless it escalated
And
to
you're talking about the building code at that point?
We also do code enforcement. We do complaint resolution and
On zoning?
violations. Not the zoning side, on the building side.
We
So
do a
building-
lot of the zoning enforcement internally, and Carrington would help us with the ones that we knew would be extensive.
Okay, I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out because, you know, really, but you are doing building code enforcement.
Yes, we are.
And that sort of happens through the life of the job, essentially.
Absolutely.
And then you're talking about some zoning code enforcement. And that could be the house isn't where it should be or something.
The setback, the heights,
Yeah.
you know, those types of issues, but oftentimes they sort of meld into one another.
Yes,
Did we give a building permit to someone who shouldn't have gotten a building permit because they're, you know, 5 feet over their property line? All those things take extensive review and research, and we tend to do those in-house.
In-house. And then if it gets really thorny, you were asking the attorney's office for some additional help.
To help us, yeah.
That
And-
would be consistent with environmental health too. We take the lead on most of our complaints, and then depending on the situation, we contact the attorney's office and get Carrington involved.
Mhm, mhm.
Not to diminish the fact that, you know, when we gave them those, they were sticky ones and they took a lot of time. So time-wise, you know, we gave them a lot of work.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So how do you feel about code enforcement? Do you need Carrington?
We're gonna.
Or a Carrington position?
We feel like there is a hole without it. We're not sure if, I always liked the fact that the position was in the attorney's office because of the authority level coming from, you know, the attorney's office. Whereas I think more appropriately, you know, he probably worked with us a lot more.
A lot.
If I could give one example of that, there was a day last week when Susan Pearson, who's our planning engineer, went out to do an inspection. And between town and W/J on McLean Flats Road, she saw 3 violations of people doing earth moving without permits on McLean Flats Road and Lower River Road. Had
We
to
don't let her
write-
go out anymore.
Had to write notices of violation to all of them and, you know, never really got to her inspection. We do need that kind of help in the summertime when everybody has a yellow machine working and they don't all have permits. And that's when we really feel the stress because of all the other things we're doing to take the time out to write notices of violation and follow up on them is difficult. And that's what the code enforcement officer position did. We would just call that office and say, I saw a yellow machine, there's no permit, go take care of it.
So do you have someone in mind? Or do you do active recruiting?
It's not my position to recruit at this point, so we're gonna
Well,
have a
suggest,
discussion.
suggestions.
Yeah, we're gonna have the discussion about whether or not we're gonna be able to refill that position.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's definitely on the radar screen. It's a little bit of an unusual structure to have, you know, enforcement capability in your prosecuting kind of arm, but it really worked, I think, particularly because of Carrington's unique kind of skill set and perspective. And so that's a discussion that we've opened up and we're going to be having with the attorney's office as far as how do we move that forward.
And we just don't have any space for them.
Right, it is additional staff burden too.
We really literally have not one seat in that office.
Right.
But hopefully that person will be in the field most of the time.
Well, the structure of a hammer, you know, is a nice handle, but you need a steel head at the end of it, so.
With that.
With that. That's right. We're getting back to the hammer. In 2007, we kind of call that the peak time when we look at those charts, when we're trying to, are we at that level now? And we were kind of asking ourselves conceptually, are we as busy as we were in 2007? And what's really kind of shifted, what's changed from those days is kind of how we do business. I think that if you look on the administrative side, some of the duties haven't changed from that long list that I showed, but with call volume, we're trying to track that and trying to track our walk-ins and see where trends are and see if volumes have increased. We feel like we're constantly answering the phone, and that takes us away from our plans examiner duties and some of our other duties. So we're truly trying to get a handle on that. We did switch to doing appointments since then, so that's kind of cut down on some of the walk-in volume, and now we do all of our submittals through an appointment system, which seems to be really working as far as knowing when that flow and controlling that flow a little more than just getting bombarded by walk-ins unexpectedly. So that's been a big improvement. We also encourage people to meet with us in pre-submittal meetings and appointments prior to coming into the front desk and just dumping all the paperwork on us, so that we know that when they come in through the door, they're going to have a better chance of being complete and substantially complete to be able to go into the system. So all those things are taking time away from the plans examiner sitting at his plans table just doing plans. In the last couple of years, we've changed the way we do valuations, and now when permits come in the door, they come in with an affidavit associated with them swearing and attesting to that valuation, that that's the number that they really are going to spend to build that project. And at the end, we are also closing the project out with an audit to see if it came in the same as what they originally said, or higher or lower, and collecting those deficiencies. So there's a lot of my administrative time involved in chasing after numbers from people and trying to close that out. And we front-loaded that prior to our final inspections, so they're anxious to get it done because they want to get their final. So it seems to be working really well. It's just very time-consuming. The last one on the administrative side is that we require all the referral agency sign-offs and fees and everything to be collected before we'll even do a building final. And I crack up because when I started in 2001, I have this yellow piece of paper on my clipboard that says, as of January 2nd, 2001, all building final inspections will not be performed until all of the referral departments involved in the permit review and issuance have inspected and approved. So I've been working on this since the day I started in 2001 to make this a reality. And I feel like we're really getting there. I think that we've got the referral agents on board.
Yay!
Well, it is an accomplishment. I really feel kind of proud of that, because we make sure that they've paid their water fees or water tap fees. They've paid sanitation. They've done all these things before we'll even do a building final. And by holding on to that building final instead of holding on to the CO, we're not putting ourselves in kind of a legal quandary with, we did our final, they think they can move in, but they don't have a document saying that's legal yet. So that was an important thing to accomplish. On the plan review side, after 2007, if you really look back at that time, we had gone through a situation where I myself had to appear before the grand jury, and my concept of how important what we do really kind of refocused. When I was hired here by Stephen Knipe, I was told, make sure that whatever you do, you can defend in court, and that's kind of how I've done business since I've been here. And in the last 2 years, I've really restructured some of what I thought were places where we had some exposure, and kind of asked Tony to just be a little bit more in-depth in the plan review time that he spends. And he's came in with qualifications and certifications that are above and beyond anybody that we've had in that position before. And I just feel like the time spent, is well spent. And I think that we're producing a better product that goes to the field to start that initial phase of inspections. Permit submittals are scheduled to manage workload. I brought that up again on this side because that's taking away some of Tony's time to actually be at the plan desk. Call volume is high, especially when turnaround times start increasing. So as we get busier and as we get into the summer, we always kind of see a trend that our call volumes kind of raise up because people are asking, where's my permit? And people are trying to find out what's going on. And so those little interruptions throughout the day can really change things. And Cindy will mention later that we're trying to do all the management techniques we can about pushing those phone calls to later in the day and doing callbacks at a certain time of the day, or maybe once or twice a day, instead of constantly answering that phone as far as in the back offices. Front desk, that's a live person answering the phone, and we're going to keep it that way. Higher scrutiny of sub-permits. We've, in the last 2 years, really have been asking for more information on our sub-permits. In prior times, we would just ask for a permit application and issue it pretty much across the table. Sometimes it would be a day or two, but now we're actually doing a plan review on the electrical. But now that we have an electrical master and myself becoming trained as an electrician, we do more in-depth electrical reviews, plumbing reviews, mechanical reviews. We're asking for plans on those, and that's all just adding to our timeline and adding to the amount of time. What we feel at the end, we get a better product out the door. As we're crossing over into the digital world, we're seeing a big impact from having to scan all of our plans. What we do, instead of doing two hand red line sets of plans, we're actually doing our first red line set, then we either scan it in-house or take it down to Reaper Graphics and have that set scanned with the red lines already on them. And then that way it goes right into our archival system to be permanently archived. But even on a simple change order, that takes somebody's time to either go physically stand in front of the scanner and scan those sheets and take that. I was going to try to help Tony with some of the load that was sitting on the table. I said, give me some easy ones. And I think some of those easy ones were an hour in themselves when they used to be a 15-minute sit down and mark it up quickly and get it out the door. But that timeline was greatly increased and impacted by crossing over into the digital side of things. At the front desk, they've already gone into doing double input, where they're putting some stuff into Eaton and some stuff into our new CSI program. And each one of those things is adding to the amount of time that we spend each day. Building inspections, once again, coming out of the grand jury stuff that I went through and the tragedy that we had in the valley, we went to a higher scrutiny on our inspections of photographing and documenting life safety issues, taking pictures of the alarms and taking pictures of handrails. So all that stuff is on record that as we inspected that house, that we saw all those things and that all those things were identified.
How do you store those?
Right now, we just have them all on our G drive or our I drive now. So they're all in digital format.
And they're associated with a job number? Or
we put the job address on them and the permit number that they came from. And that's all.
so you can go back and call them up?
We can, yes. But that all added time. Now, that's something the inspector has to do when he comes in the next day after a day's worth of inspections. He has to download all that information from his final inspections, and he's still doing some data entry that we won't have to do once maybe we go to CSI. But at this time, that's still part of his day. And then with the new restrictions on the sub-permits and being tighter on the plan review on that, we're doing more inspections associated with the electrical alarms and the electrical low voltage stuff. We found that some of the low voltage people were coming in after we had done some of our rough-ins and putting holes in the framing and doing work after we had already done our rough-ins. And so we found that if we asked them for permitting up front and make sure that we could scrutinize them to the same level, that we got a better quality product out of that as well. So.
And much of that review was determined that we needed to get to that level in the attorney's office. It's not that we're overdoing it. You know, I feel like we're doing it to the appropriate level that we need it to. So, and that does take more time. And I don't see it on here, but also just some of the reviews we do today are on, I don't know if you put that in there, but some of the reviews we do today take more time.
Yeah, the in-depth
Okay.
reviews, definitely. Oh, and good, that brought us to another point in that same sentence, or that same, cross-departmental dialogue. I feel like there's a lot more interaction now that there's a joint office with our engineer and Tony, that there's a lot more sharing goes back and forth as far as overlap and things that we both should be watching for. And that communication is great, but it's adding to our timeline because we're not so siloed that somebody's just producing and sending stuff out the door. Zoning's talking about building, and building's talking to engineering, and I think there's a higher level of that communication going on that is good and very beneficial to what we do. But it's added to the timeline that it takes to just be producing work and sending it out the door. So that's kind of my piece.
Thank you.
So, Brian, one of the things we've talked about in the past is the delay in getting building permits out, not so much perhaps internally, but because of the delay through referral agencies. And I know that in the past, I think you've instituted a new method that when an application comes in, that application simultaneously goes out to all referral agencies at once. But it still seems like it still slows up the process. So what are sort of options, alternatives to try to move that quicker through our referral agencies. And then what happens in this case that Lance just said, so then you get a 100-page change order. I'm assuming that has to go back out
Yes.
to the referral agencies again.
I think one of the toughest hurdles we have is that we don't control those agencies' timeline so much. They have other duties and other tasks besides plan review. We're just one of their duties, and we try to work with those. Tony does a great job of chasing down a lot of those sign-offs. We implemented a procedure a few years ago that the applicant would take ownership of asking for those referral sign-offs, because a lot of times it's their project, they're really focused on their one project, so if they're contacting fire and they're contacting water and sand, sometimes they get a better response or a quicker response because it's them and they're going to continue to hammer and try to get it done. But that being said, Tony still does a lot of chasing of those sign-offs, and that's a large part of his day is finding out, even internally, because we don't always see each other, there's lapses in getting our own internal sign-offs. So sometimes we're waiting and somebody will go on vacation and we didn't know they were done already or whatever. So we're trying to clear up some of those gaps through this dialogue that we're trying to improve and making sure we're talking on a better level and a higher level internally. But there is still delays, and as other departments get busy, those delays shift, and we can't always predict how long it's going to be down in the salt getting reviewed for fire. We hope that he's going to be in a 2-week turnaround time, and we kind of try to account for that. But for us to send it out right now the way that we're doing it, or we send our one set down there, we have to wait until it comes back before we move it forward in the process. Now, as we go into CSI, we hope that
It's our new software program.
everybody's looking at the same digital version of everything. So there'll be a little bit more of that, being able to everybody look at something at once. Even bringing on Tammy, we thought would improve the timeline. But at this time, while she's training, there's now 3 people looking at things instead of just 1 or 2. So as we start to refine and revise, sometimes we have to extend the timeline a little bit to contract it back again to get to where we want it to be. Is that good?
No, I understand it's a challenge, and I guess the point that you made was that if you started to get a complaint from an applicant that what's holding this up, well, it's over in this agency or that agency, that I would suggest that you call them to let them know that if I'm the applicant, I need this information so I can continue to pursue getting my building permit.
And that seems to be the best route. It really, I see the greatest success if an applicant takes ownership and goes ahead and calls fire, because then fire calls me, this guy says I'm holding up his permit. I'm not holding up his permit, or whoever, one of the other agencies will call me, and they'll actually respond to that. So personally, I think that that's the best way to do it, is that the applicant takes ownership. And we've got sheets with all that contact information that we give them up front, and we tell them that's the way that the system works. But right now, we're still doing a whole lot of chasing and trying to get those sign-offs internally. If you have any suggestions for us, I'd love to hear them.
No, seriously, I mean, this isn't a meeting to try to get you to make any decisions or give us any huge direction, but if you have some, we'll take it. We'll take it.
I view this kind of as a reality check for us to see where you are, what conditions you're operating in, how you're dealing with everything you have to deal with, given the limitations that you have. So.
Well, the picture's worth 1,000 words. Here we go. This is the active building permit file, and we figured there's over 300 and something there. So Joanna has always said to me, wouldn't it be great if we had like a big map of the entire county with a little light on at every spot where there's an open building permit happening? That's basically it. I mean, we can do that with GIS, but that's basically it. Those permits, as we said, range from everything from the guy who hasn't come in for his final for his chicken coop to, you know, the house that we think there's one out there that's been 8 years. And so they're still there. But that doesn't mean it's just sitting there. Any minute of the day, someone might come in and say, I'm ready for my inspection on one of those 300 and something. Or I've finally got you the information you needed so I can go to this next phase, or whatever it might be. So those are all in play and here we wanted to just show real quickly that oftentimes from a space perspective, you know, we're working in pretty cramped little areas to try to figure out, you know, what's going on there. And it was funny, when I took that picture this morning, they opened it up to a notice of violation in the file when they opened it up. So there are things we're still hanging on that people need to resolve, things that are just waiting. So with that, the next photograph I wanted to show was, these are some more that need to go out. These are sub-permits that are sitting at the front desk ready. We know these guys are going to come in. There's a file drawer for the electrical, the one-pagers, and some others that just need to go out the door. And the next one, Ellen, is the same, but these are the roll plans that no one's picked up yet, but that's the volume, if you will. And you see that bin at the bottom, that was this weekend what Tony and Susan were able to get out there to keep moving. So those are just kind of the active, ready to pick up files right there. And then here we have a picture of, this is just illustrates, it's definitely not the whole picture. We have 60 right now permits in play that need to have some action taken on them. Those are not the ones that are filed and active. These are the ones that have not been reviewed yet, or they're in some process of review with us. But there's 60, and those are, some of them, most of them are on people's desks or at fire departments or water departments or wherever they might be. So that's a picture. And then I think the next one is my favorite of the, this morning I took the picture of the 100-page change order that Tammy has to look at.
With a smile.
Yeah, it was the first thing in the morning. She didn't realize that we just handed her what that meant.
She thinks it's April Fool's Day, right?
She was still, yeah, she was still smiling from the weekend. So, so we wanted to give
Need a
you,
before and after.
yeah, just not cool. Yeah, we wanted to give you an idea about the sense of priorities that we have to make every day. You know, every day. I think Tony Popish put it the best to me. He said, you know what? I walked into the office one day and I was like, no, why isn't that plan out? And he said, Cindy, it's not my priority. I went, what do you mean it's not your priority? He said, well, I've got the phone calls, I've got the people at the desk that are, you know, hanging over the front counter asking for me. I've got change orders to keep the people active in the field on a permit that's already open, that they have, you know, we don't want to shut a job down. So our change orders, number one, and our change orders easy, not always, as you see. And then we get to the new permits. So those are kind of the priorities of what a daily life is like with the 2 plans examiners and 1 building inspector. And then we also, I just wanted to say that I think we've kind of used, as Brian mentioned, every trick in the book, really. You know, we're trying to get better with our tracking system and our new, you know, software programs that hopefully we're going to be able to start implementing here soon. But we, you know, the returning calls just twice a day rather than taking them as they come. Working weekend days, so nobody usually knows that you're there. I told everybody to stop sending out those emails because people know you're there. And then working from home a couple days a week. We have several people that actually take plans home. I think we've got the engineer twice a week, one of our zoning officers, Joanna, once a week, and then our plans examiner once a week, to get a little focused, quiet time away from the office without the interruptions so that we can get things done. As I said, improving our software. We have policies in the office about the length of summer vacation you can take, just because this is the name of the game in our jobs. And we also have cross-training of as many people as we can in the field so that we don't have to touch it twice. If somebody's out there and they can look at something and they have the credentials to do that, we try to get it done with one trip. And then, as Brian mentioned, and we're very proud of him, acquiring more certifications for the field work. Brian was #1 in his class this year for his electrical certification. in the whole valley, #1, and got 100% on his score. And we're all really proud of him. So here we have the range of options that we're thinking about as we move forward. We could maybe the board's going to say, hey, status quo, that's kind of our own growth management. We can only go as fast as we can go with the staff that we've got. Maybe that's where we want to be. I don't know, we haven't visited it for a while. But, one option of more staff and just, I feel like I'm always in here just going, please, we need more money, we need more staff. And I feel like, is that really sustainable as an organization? Is that what we really want to do? And as people always say to me, Cindy, we can't squeeze one more person in here for now. And even with the reality of a new building, it's not like we're getting a lot more space. We're moving over to the county, but it's not like we're going to get a lot more space. We could look at more consulting out of house. In fact, we are in that mode right now because we're sort of in an emergency mode of looking at bringing on some building inspectors that can help us get out there and look at stuff in the field as well as reviewing plans, just because you saw the volume that we have right now, and we don't want it to be December before some people get their permits. And then the other very extreme end of it is we could lessen the intake and have more of a gradual or defined workflow in terms of the number of permits that flow through at any one time. Which all of these things have their pros and cons, but I think some of the questions we really need to ask ourselves when we look at those range of options are, we've put down here, what is the most sustainable from a labor, space, and cost perspective? We can't just hire. We don't have the space, and we don't have the money. And then what provides the best quality of product? We find that, the pros and cons of the next one, which is, potentially having more consultants out of house. We don't have the same relationships we do today with our contractors. Will the rules be applied the same? And what kind of service and what kind of turnaround time? All those things come into play. And then what provides for a more realistic work plan? That first slide I showed you with, that extensive work plan. What would give us time to be realistic about what's on our plate on top of just getting permits out? Because this year, our expectation is, yes, we're going to bring you that energy code. And, we haven't been able to get to it for years. We keep putting it off. Sorry, we've got more fires. And we're tired of not being able to produce what we hope to be able to produce. And at some point, we can't ignore the fact that we need to be up to speed with the latest building codes. And we have to do it, and it takes time. And we don't really think that farming that out is the way to go, because we know our jurisdiction and what it needs and what those codes need. So that's where we are. And so we're not coming up with any great solutions, and we're kind of throwing it out there today, and we're not expecting you to come up with any. But as you put it well, Steve, it's just kind of your reality check on what is going on in the office. And we hope it hasn't sounded like a big wine fest to you, but we just wanted to show you this one last picture. This was if you think it's slowing down, this picture Kurt took on his way into work this morning from Basalt. That picture was taken from Basalt. We know there was an accident on the road, but still.
It looked like that from the airport, though,
Yeah,
too.
yeah, but that was taken from Basalt. So it's not as though we're doing a lot about that actual workflow right now. Things are here. It's another boom in our cycle. And if we think growth management is handling it, we're just fooling ourselves.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, because I know at some point we were going to have a joint meeting with the P&Z and look at GMQS and look at sort of, is this really working now as it was originally intended to work, and will that help address some of these issues? Maybe, maybe not, but.
They're going to bring back some hard questions for you, the same kind of thing I did with, do we look at pacing? The actual permits that come out the door. It's not an easy question when you start digging into it. You know, you want to be like Baskin Robbins and pick a number, but it's just not that simple.
But you still prioritize small projects, mid-sized projects, and large projects by square footages to try to get those small, easy ones out the door quicker.
Well, it depends on, I'll let Brian
When they
speak to
color
that.
code, didn't you have a color code?
We do have the simpler levels of plans, but
Green, blue,
the other thing we
and
try to do is that if somebody's done their due diligence and have chased down those referral sign-offs for themselves too, Tony kind of prioritized those too. Anybody that's
ready
put
to
that
go.
extra effort in and they're ready to go out the door because he wants to focus his time on productive time. So if he knows somebody's got a long-term hold on something, that set of plans may sit longer than one that everyone else has already signed off on. So we are constantly reshuffling the deck to kind of prioritize things to the top that need to be going out the door.
So the reality of this applicant who came in with a 100-page change order, the expectations, his expectations, the applicant's expectation versus staff's ability is probably 100 pages apart.
Could be. And we try to tell them right up front when they come to the door what our time, I look at our turnaround times pretty frequently and to try to give a best case estimate at the front door, and I always add a couple weeks just for that what if something goes wrong factor. And we try to communicate that when they first come to the door. I don't know if they don't listen or choose not to, but that is communicated, that when you come to the door, we're looking at right now 10 to 12 weeks on a set of plans on a single family start from scratch. So the smaller stuff, you're probably, the blues are 4 to 6 is what we're quoting right now, and the greens are just a couple weeks or within a week. So, and Tony does try to keep the ones they actually, I've kind of, from the way we want to do business, have driven a higher level of change orders, because we will not let something go in the ground unless you have an approved set of plans that has all of our approval stamps on it out there in the field when we come to inspect. So it's difficult sometimes when they're waiting to pour concrete and we're waiting on a change order to come through the process and get queued up. So we have to kind of prioritize those to the front and get those turned around quickly, so the jobs, as Tony was saying, or Cindy was saying about Tony, keep those jobs flowing, because I don't want to ever be asked, why did this get built without an improved set of plans? So nothing gets poured, built, stood up until they have our stamps and everybody's had a chance to scrutinize that. So that in itself has driven a lot more change orders.
The other thing I forgot to throw in Tony's list of priorities before he gets to review a plan is if it's a heavy inspection day, one inspector can't do it. You know, we have to get people out in the field. And so that's why we have combination plans examiner inspectors, so they can they can train.
And when we first brought Jane into the mix, we noticed that our turnaround times quickly decreased, and we were down to about half of our turnaround time, having 2 people doing that. Unfortunately, though, we've been so busy in the field this season that I've had to use her in the field or go out myself. So we quickly lost that ground we gained by having to utilize her in a different way. That's why we're looking at doing contract. And we had the 8 buildings from the music school just coming on top of the load that we already have in-house. So those are the ones that I'm going to probably farm out to consultants and have them do those large-scale commercial projects for us to kind of keep that from getting into Tony's timeline and really kind of messing up the mix. So.
And that has an impact on our revenues because consulting time is not cheap. They get 60% of what we would take in. You know, so while we're appreciative of getting the work out the door, you know, the bottom line in the budget's going to look different.
Let me ask you, how do other building departments deal with this? I mean, throughout the state and the country, do they say, well, listen, we have a fixed staff, get it to the back of the line? And I'm completely unsympathetic to it. I've read a couple of fictional books, and one of the worst things that can happen is to get sent to the building department in LA. And so, you know, they just avoid it at all costs because you can be there all day just as a client. So what are their other response? I mean, this is sort of like a free market response. You've got a line at the Baskin Robbins or a line at a restaurant. You can't increase staff during that day. People get bad service. You increase your staff and then nobody shows up. And, you know, so in the free market, it's a very delicate thing. How do they do it in in other building departments that you know of?
Haven't been to the LA one. Thank goodness, but Brian probably knows more than I do about that.
Well, the closest example would be across the street where it goes into the 16, 18, 20-week time period during peak times. And we've never gone to that level. We've always shuffled staff or whatever we need to do to avoid that. Some jurisdictions do just first in, first out, and you just are told up front that you're behind this many and here's where you're going to be. So I think it varies. I don't know if anybody has as busy a building department as we seem to in our boom times. And with the level of staff we have proportionally to that. Yeah.
Brian was going to add, in Vail, they do their referral departments like water and things like that. They front load it on the planning piece so that they don't hold up the building permit with those reviews. It does cause problems though, because it means you have to have that plan at that point, and when you obviously get 100-page change orders, people are not totally clear on what they want to build, even when they come in at building permit, so knowing that
When they build it.
Or they just make those people submit plans to those departments, and it's not done like we do it, where we're working together with them to make sure we have a synchronized product. So they just do their building review. And they don't worry about all those other departments. They sort of cut that out of the mix, and their review times go down, obviously, quite a bit with that.
But the approval is indefinite.
Hasn't changed.
Exactly, it extends your approval time for that planning piece.
Yeah, the other thing I put in the memo was do less. I mean, that's the other option is, not be as thorough with, all of the types of things that we care about in Pitkin County. And, could we give anything up? Could we take anything off the plate? Those are other questions that, we come back to policy questions.
Well, John?
And I just, the other challenge to your question is the uniqueness of every project and complexity of projects here is something that other building, at least in entities that I've been involved with in the past, it's a completely different game from doing, a set of maybe track housing with a certain amount that you're kind of reviewing to what is in essence almost a commercial-like building that's a single house, and none of them are the same, and remarkably complex. So it's hard to borrow, I think, other building departments' processes and such, or we're in a pretty small pond, I guess, of like situations. And so it's not a way of necessarily answering your question, but part of what's difficult is the terminal uniqueness of our community and our projects.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I went by a project that was an all-steel post and beam structure, and I think it was a home. But it looked more like the beginning of a Walmart or something. So, and then the complexity contained within that, aside from the sort of structural complexities, the complexity of systems. You talked about low voltage systems, and there's been an expansion of that whole world and the digital world and how you wire a house for that. So and then the challenges that you're going to get the county's experienced, and so I personally I don't think that cutting back is the answer, but I don't know how to address. I don't know how to address a workload that expands and contracts without any warning, and how to maintain a service level in that expansion and contraction.
And the certainty and predictability to your clientele. I mean, wouldn't it be ideal in the building trade if you knew, when your permit came in, that it would be out in a certain period of time, and you could arrange all your subs and all your, and have, this ideal situation. Wouldn't that be ideal? How we get there is a whole nother, question, because something has to give. It's a trade-off of, does the community lose out because we're not taking advantage of an economic time, when people can be working, or, is it honed in to sustain a certain amount of that kind of work? all of that, you know, it's pretty tricky business. And they're, like I say, they're bigger policy issues than just how we set up our process.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I
Patty?
just wanted to make a
Just gonna say-
comment before we close, but.
One particular trend I saw this year that's kind of new, and I'm not sure, and I kind of thought people were understanding our timeline, is that we had a constant flow of plans through the winter this year.
Mhm.
And I thought that was because they were realizing that it was an 8 to 10 week timeline and that they
We
wanted
were
to get in
gearing
the
up.
queue and be up front. But once warm weather came and everybody got inspired to start building, we still got hammered in April. So it wasn't as drawn out as I'd hoped it'd been. I was hoping that people had kind of got the point that there was a long lead time. But we'll see if that happens again next year, if we stay as busy through the winter with plans coming in.
Have you had suggestions from the building community on what you could do? I mean,
I think they're looking forward to our new software system where they can submit electronically. Most people are way ahead of us on that, and I think that they're looking forward to that because they know that things can go out concurrently and for that review. So we've gotten some of that kind of feedback, but
I've
what
had
do you think?
One interesting suggestion was for someone to pay for their own third-party plan review. And
That would make me
was an
really
interesting
nervous.
twist. I know, I worry about that, and who vets those people, and how does that all work? But that was an interesting suggestion, was that they would send it off to someone like Safe Built or Colorado Code. and
like a certified
Third party.
engineer,
Yeah.
plan inspector, whatever the certification.
Right. That was the other extreme. I mean, Brian could sit behind a desk and just go, yep, that was stamped by an engineer, yep, that was stamped by a plans examiner, yep. You know, we can have one guy behind the desk. But, you know, is that what we want?
The trouble I've seen in the past using consultants, though, is that we end up doing kind of a review of some of
their
our hot
work.
button issues and things that we want to look at, because they'll look at code issues and they'll try to look at some of our local ordinances and policies, but I still felt like it was important to kind of make sure we did that double check of the work that came through the door. So getting that quality from a third party is something we're going to struggle with as we try to use that as a technique.
And Kurt always brings up to me that our codes are a little different than other folks' codes, so it's rare that we could accept an engineered stamp septic system, because it's not gonna be the septic system that's designed by our code. And so it's constantly a back and forth.
Well, I know some people would say, if you want to build something, just build it in Garfield County where they have different standards and different procedures. And thinking of possible solutions in terms of space, like if we added another person, how would we provide space to them? And there's potential solutions like flex time and having more people work at home part of the time, or have somebody come in, they work Tuesday through Saturday instead of Monday through Friday kind of things. Or we could maybe find a space at Public Works or someplace that somebody could work. And I know we're not going to solve it here today. It's an ongoing thing. But if we did add, just a thought, if we did add another person on the staff who was really multi-talented and could be helping on the overload now on the building plans, but then they could be working on the energy, updating the energy code or whatever when there's a slack period of time, which might not be until winter time or something, but that might be a way that we could try to tackle some of these more long-term projects by having somebody who's flexible enough they could do, help out here as they're needed and then work on something else as when they have time.
Or free up staff to do those other tasks too. I mean, that's
So I think we need to move on to our lunch break now. You got your whole hour pretty
Well,
much, so.
Thanks for listening, and hopefully you have a better sense of what
Yeah,
we
so,
do.
yeah, if you can come forward with potential solutions and have another work session at some point,
Well, the P and Z will be back to see you in July. I think,
Corner over
so.
here. Just forgot. He's got it,
Okay.
but it's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can bear with it.
Okay, we are on lunch break now, and we're scheduled to start at 12:45, so.
You know, the great thing about Time Alma Park,
Okay.
it tries out.
Welcome back. We're going to our next agenda item on Tuesday, May 26th, and this is a budget supplemental for Elk Park additional funding, and we have Lindsay Utter and Gary Tenenbaum. We're here from Open Space staff.
So yes, we are here today to ask for additional funds for the Elk Park Depot. To give a quick history on the project, Phase 1 is the depot structure. Phase 2 is everything else in the park, both of which went to bid last year. We got a responder on Phase 2 and moved forward with construction on Phase 2 last year. And for the most part, Phase 2 is complete. There are a few things this year that we need to install, like interpretive information benches. And then once the depot is complete, Phase 2 will need to come in and finish the area around the depot proper. But what we're here for today is the funding of the depot. We went to bid twice last year. The first time we did not receive any response. The second time we received one response, and it was twice the estimated budget. So we decided this winter that we would go forward with one more attempt to find a contractor, which we did. We received 4 or 5 responses over the winter, ranging in price from about $256,000 to about $332,000. It's CDOT grant dollars are involved, so CDOT needs to approve the bidder. They start by going with the low bidder. In this case, the low bidder was rejected. So we move forward with getting approval on the second lowest bidder, and so that is where we are today. So the second lowest bidder came in at $269,000 approximately. We discussed with our board moving forward with the project, and they decided to continue with the project. So where we are right now is that we have a shortfall of $125,000 roughly. Last year, to begin moving forward with this process, we approved the $204,000. So $204,000 plus the shortfall takes us to $329,000 total for the depot phase of this project. When our board recommended the supplemental funding for approval, they requested that a portion of it come from the park's dedication fund. Since this is a park, keeping in mind currently that fund has $29,000 in it approximately. So what we're here to ask for today is approval on our supplemental dollars so approval on the $125,547 with $29,000 of those, the request is to come from the Parks Fund. The remainder of that would come from the Open Space and Trails Fund.
George?
So where does the Parks Fund come from? And is it, do they continue to generate funds, or is this sort of a end of a fund?
I believe we're still generating funds from basically it's an impact fee levied at the time of development. They're funds that we've been sitting on for some time. I need to check, George. I'm actually not sure if we're still levying those funds at this point or not. I think we've stepped back from levying those funds. So I apologize for that confusion, but they're funds that the county has been sitting on for some time. We've actually appropriated a portion of them in anticipation, the major portion of them in anticipation of a trail along Prince Creek. This project fits firmly within the intent of those parks dedication fees. And the partnership with Open Space and Trails makes a lot of sense to use the funds for that purpose, because a park of this type is a little bit outside of what Open Space and Trails would traditionally be doing. We don't have another department, though, that would administer necessarily this kind of project for a parks project, and so it made sense to us to levy really almost all of the remaining funds out of those park dedication fees for this project. We don't have another one on the horizon other than that Prince Creek Trail alignment that we've been still have property negotiations and such.
So this would basically draw down that park fund to zero?
Just about. I think there's $400 something left in it, but
Just enough for a party up there for a ribbon cutting?
not
We
even
could zero
anymore.
it out. Just
And so, and that's really dependent on what happens with this other project, George. We had actually appropriated $700,000, which is why it's coming down that much. That will either get reimbursed in full or in part, depending on what happens with the Prince Creek Trail project. And so we'll have anywhere from $350,000 to $700,000 coming back into that fund in the future. So it won't be completely dry. We'll still have opportunities to do. But because of the way the appropriations are working now and the fact that we've appropriated that $700,000, the remaining balance that's really unencumbered is that $29,434 or something like that.
Michael, do you have a picture of this gazebo?
The depot, yes.
Can I ask a real quick question? So the reason we wouldn't draw it down totally to keep that covenant is to keep that account open. So if we were gonna transfer that 700,000 or whatever back and forth, we'd still have that account, which would make sense.
Yeah, and the board could draw it down to zero if you wanted. You just can't go negative, but we can't just the round number.
Do you have a larger rendition of it?
I know, and I was trying to get this to zoom in,
Those are nice
Yeah, why
postage
doesn't it
stamps.
zoom
in or something?
because it's doing it as a pop-up.
Here, if you hit
Let
the-
me do this real quick. There. So I can zoom in on that a little further if you want.
Oh, there we go.
But yeah, so, I mean, the depot we worked with the steering committee in Redstone as well as the Redstone, I'm gonna mess up the acronym.
Historic preservation.
Thank you. There's Redstone Historic Preservation Council Committee, to make sure that it was something that would be fitting within their guidelines. And so the idea being that exactly on this location, historically, the depot for Redstone would have been located. And so the architectural design lends itself to kind of a depot look. And then the materials fit in with what is approved through the Redstone Historic Committee. So it's not a basic, it's not your average kiosk. And then there's interpretive panels inside it. And then we do have grant dollars, like I said, we've talked about before, but we have scenic byway grant dollars, so the information in there includes information on the community of Redstone and the areas around Redstone, as well as a panel on the scenic byway loop. Do you have a question?
Steve, I had one more thing.
Yeah.
On the parks dedication funds, I mean, we administer a lot more parks throughout the county, Redstone Park, Jaffe Park. And so, you know, hopefully in the future, if that money comes available because you get reimbursed, we could work together with that fund to work on other parks in the valley, so the open space fund doesn't have to take over the full amount of all of that.
Okay, Lindsay, oh, just a second, Michael. So this money is just for doing the depot gazebo, and then the phase 2 then would be further down the road and would have,
No, phase 2 is almost complete.
okay, and that's all the landscaping and the parking lot and all
Yeah.
that? Okay,
They were labeled 1 and 2 originally because originally the goal was to get the depot built before the remainder of the park. But that just didn't work out timing-wise, and so phase 2 ultimately will be finished after phase 1 because of the landscape directly around the depot, but the majority of it is complete.
okay, so this is kind of like the piece de resistance, finishing it up, and the park will be basically complete once this is finished. Okay. Michael?
Well, it seems to me going into the future here, that you have to be careful of accepting grants from, there has to be a cutoff point for those grants. And so this seemed like a really good deal to begin with, because it was a substantial amount of money, but all it's done is add to the cost of the project. And so almost you zero out in terms of the benefit of that grant. You just raise the price of this fairly simple structure to a substantial sum. So insubstantial structure, substantial sum, and I don't blame CDOT for it. They build their sort of mindset is to build for permanence and build for safety and have close supervision of their contractors on their projects so nothing goes awry. This project doesn't present any of those challenges. And so I would just hope that open space, unless you have a $2 or $3 million project, I don't know what the cutoff point would be, that you just wouldn't get involved with CDOT in the future. And I think although it's hard to bear costs, I think you'd come out ahead if you just didn't accept grants from CDOT at this scale. There might be other scales be fine, but at this scale, I don't think it's been worth it. I'm perfectly in support of this and of the supplemental, but going forward, I think we have to rethink that, that's all.
So, board, is there a general nod of agreement for approving the supplemental?
Will it come back to us right at a regular meeting?
Yeah, so what we do is we accumulate these requests and we bring them back in a formal resolution.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay.
Great, thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
and you'll start to see this soon. Great, because Redstone's been kind of waiting for it, so it'd be nice to see.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Next, we have a review of future agendas.
Yeah, and this will be hopefully fairly short. Note for the board, I think you all received an email to this effect, but the June EOTC meeting has been rescheduled for Thursday, July 16th. Not clear to me what was driving that schedule change, but typically it means that some of the other bodies, didn't have a quorum, and we try to accommodate that. So that meeting will be moved. We've also been looking ahead to our meetings in July. We had some unbalanced days in there in your future agendas, some really busy ones, some empty ones. So we're looking to rebalance those. So you see those shift in future agendas, discussions. And then, believe it or not, we are already starting to calendar for our 2016 budget considerations. And one of the, if we follow the process similar to what we've done the past few years with the core focus budget meetings, we do have one that would fall during Thanksgiving week. We could move that to the week before, but it would mean probably a 7-hour day of budgets for you. So I don't know if you guys have any preference at this early stage. But it'd give you the Thanksgiving week off. So we don't need to answer that now, or if you're ready to.
I can answer it. I'd rather not have this Thanksgiving week burdened by a budget, and then just cut that 7-hour budget meeting to 3 hours.
Well, I know you would like that.
Everything would be fine.
That's a great suggestion. I think
All in favor, say aye.
Yeah, we're gonna make it 8 hours.
just to punish us.
Yeah, I don't have any problem. That would be just on a Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving's on a Thursday. That's fine with me.
Oh, to do it Thanksgiving week versus
Versus an
previous.
8-hour epic.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
They're so entertaining, George.
I'd rather not do an epic meeting. And I'm fine doing it on like a Tuesday on Thanksgiving week.
I don't know, I
I
haven't
guess we
decided
don't
what I'm
have to
doing for
decide now.
Thanksgiving yet,
Okay.
so.
Well, we'll have more time to talk
Yeah.
about it. Just we've started trying to get those, no pun intended, your time budgeted for budget, and we're starting to
That was
plan
really
that.
bad.
I know, that was, gotta make jokes about budget.
Please not on our behalf.
That's really all I've got on future agendas right now.
George?
Really, two things. One, our chair and our co-chair will be out, so have to figure out who will run the meeting. And then we have an abatement hearing scheduled for a half hour only, so we never quite know if we need less time, more time. So.
And we'll work with the assessor's office. We oftentimes don't know till even closer to the meeting whether folks are showing up or not.
But I'm assuming right now, it must only be 1 or 2 people scheduled anyway to have that short a time frame.
Yep. And it may not be any by the time we get there. Do we have a preference on how to handle who will be chairing? Good catch, George. I should have caught that.
Who would be up next?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think.
District 3, Michael?
Oh, let's put Michael in charge.
Yeah.
Okay. Done and done.
On the, I'm looking at my calendar on the date of the EOTC meeting, and I might have conflicts on that time. There's a Club 20 policy meeting in Rifle. I don't know how long that's gonna run. And that would be the main thing. Might be able to get back by EOTC at 4 o'clock, but then there's a thing following that I was planning on going to at ACES. It's been on the calendar for a long time that I haven't signed up for it yet, but I don't really appreciate that they changed it and they didn't even consult any of us on what our schedules were. I think that would have been a nice thing for them to do before just picking a date and changing it.
I would agree with that, but my thought is all we really need to do is have a quorum from each board at these meetings, and to assume that we're going to get 100% participation is unrealistic, but as long as we can get a quorum from each, and maybe one group couldn't even get a quorum. Otherwise, we'll never find a date that will work.
Right now, I'm good that day, so we'll just wait and see what happens.
Yeah, why don't we see if we have a quorum, and I'll note Steve, the check-in, it is difficult to, with 15 different elected officials to work with everyone's schedule to find that date.
And Rachel, I'm sure would be planning on being at the Club 20 thing also.
Okay.
So maybe we can find out from Club 20 when they anticipate that being finished. Would be one thing we could do. Because maybe it'll be done in plenty of time to drive back up.
If there are no other future agenda, I do have one other thing I'd go over with you guys if there's time, but.
I'm good on future agendas.
So we do have a joint work session this afternoon with the town of Basalt and Eagle County. And as these things go, when you have 3 jurisdictions meeting for the first time, the agendas can be sometimes a challenge to kind of get put together to, I think, get everyone's wish list on there. And so how it ended up was the visioning discussion kind of turned into the common themes, which is, that gives us an opportunity to talk about what do we have in common, what are some of our common concerns. The big picture discussion, I think, that you guys were looking for, I think we termed it more as a vision for the Roaring Fork Valley, what are our shared visions. Common themes seem to work for the other jurisdictions, and as they're not to that bigger kind of discussion. And then there were some specific areas that I think the jurisdictions, particularly Eagle County and Basalt, have brought forward that may help inform that bigger discussion too, that they're particularly focused on, and it kind of broke down into categories of affordable living, which would cover kind of housing and transportation. Basalt really does want to talk about child care and that sort of thing, and so we'll see how that discussion goes. Environmental stewardship and anything else that might emerge as part of that discussion. But it's going to be pretty wide open, I think. I know there were some agendas floated out to you guys early on that maybe had some narrower topics or broader, but this is kind of how on Friday when I was over in Denver and we were all in different locations, we kind of got it gelled into this kind of format. So this is how our afternoon ended up laying out. But I think it gives you guys the opportunity to have those big picture discussions that you're looking for.
Michael?
See, I was envisioning the first meeting being a big picture discussion, and then subsequent meetings could handle just one topic, which is housing, childcare, whatever. Because I think you're able to do so little on those 6 large topics with 15 or whatever people, 13 people. It just, well.
Well, it may be that you guys don't get beyond the common theme discussion, just like you're saying that with there's going to be 13 elected officials there
12.
Sorting through the 12, I guess today, sorting through those common themes. It's okay if we don't get through all of it, because that is the invitation to come back and talk about more. And I think we recognize that. I think there was some concern that maybe we need some jump start for some of that conversation. That's where the individual topics came from. So I wouldn't feel there's no real timelines put on it except the beginning and the end, and we'll just see how the discussion goes. So Mike, I think that's still an opportunity. It's always, you have 3 different organizations getting together. They do it a little bit differently.
I'm just really interested to see, since, I don't know if it was Basalt or Eagle that brought up the child care education issue with affordability or affordable living. And I'm just really interested to see what their perspective is on that. I think it'll be interesting.
This actually came through our Healthy Community Fund, but it is for the joint work session for Town of Eagle, Basalt, and it's a little background paper on that. And it really seems to be focused on a group of nonprofits in the Mid-Valley that have been working with Basalt on access to affordable childcare in particular, which is something that we do support through the Healthy Community Fund. And so I have not read this. We just became aware of this document today, but it might provide a little bit of background. But I think it kind of fits in to the overall affordability model, transportation, childcare, housing, and that's.
Is the Cradle to Career, is that part of John Bennett's thing that started out of?
It's part of the Aspen Institute.
Okay.
Aspen Foundation.
Foundation.
Aspen Foundation. Okay. Isn't John Bennett involved? Is that this? Okay. Just so I'm familiar with where. Thank you.
So anyway, just since we had a little bit of time, I wanted to, just make sure that you guys had that in your hand. It looks like this is going to be the structure going forward.
So you had one question down here is next steps, or number 3, facilitate discussion. So this is just going to be kind of wild, wild west, wide open. And, I mean, no one's going to lead this, or are we going to, how? I just can't picture this.
BOCCWorksession is going to be taking lead. They're hosting the meeting, and so I think between Jackie and Mike, they're going to be trying to facilitate the discussion. Yeah, and George, beyond that, I think I wouldn't want to hurt all of you, so I don't know how that's going to go.
Look at this, like the very first ever meeting of EOTC getting together with all the elected officials without a clear vision of where they were going. And
Well, it's like that at every ELTC meeting.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that's changed.
Yeah.
It's been better, right.
And if need be, staff will step in and try and provide some facilitation and such. But I think it's going to be a good initial discussion. I personally will be surprised if we get past item 1 in the time allowed. I think it will probably take on a little bit of a life of its own, but we'll see.
I thought you were going to say I personally will not be there.
No, personally, yeah, I'm going to.
Like we're dropping you off at the intercept line. Okay.
so, John, we had talked about having some staff members there. Are we going to have?
We'll have some staff members in the, we'll have some ComDev staff in the audience. I don't think we're going to have, I just talked to John Ely and such, and he's asked if we thought we were really going to go deep into the waters issues. I told him I didn't think so, so I think he's got another
That's at the very last one, isn't it?
yeah, so, but we will have some ComDev staff there.
And they won't be doing the presentation, but more as a resource if we have
Absolutely.
questions, or just so they can hear the discussion too.
Right, because we felt like the general kind of themes and vision kind of discussion would probably affect kind of land use considerations the most going forward. So, yep, they will be in the audience.
Okay.
And that's all I've got for you.
Okay, that's clear as mud.
Like to keep you guessing.
It's on our toes.
Let's see. Dallas, are you Dallas?
I am.
Okay, Dallas, you are next up on our agenda, and we're even on time. So we have a citizen board interview of Dallas Blaney for the Election Commission. And Dallas, welcome to our board meeting. We always interview people before we appoint them to boards, and then some of the positions we interview when somebody is up for renewal. The election commission's not one of those, but it's a chance for us to get to know you and ask some questions. So we appreciate you applying for this position, and then different commissioners will can have questions for you. Michael, do you want?
No, I don't have a question.
Okay. So general question is what is your interest in being on the election commission board, and how do you feel like you're qualified for the position?
Okay. I'm interested in getting involved in some kind of public service. I moved here in December, and so I'm looking to get involved in the local community. I applied previously for the financial advisory board and wasn't accepted for that position. So I thought that my expertise or my knowledge of political science, I have a PhD in political science. I've been teaching courses on American government and various other political science courses for a long, long time, and so I thought that that experience might translate more clearly into this position. So I thought I might be a better fit for this committee or commission. So.
Mhm.
We don't know what the other part is. I just had a procedural or question.
Yeah.
John's been helping me with it because of my past interaction with the election committee. We have to be party balanced. You know, we have to have X amount of party members, political party members. So John's going to see what he can track.
So just
He says they have to be
to
not-
Patty's question, the qualifications, members shall be registered electors of Picken County, which I believe you are, Dallas, and then to the extent possible, all members shall not be of the same political affiliation. And so we'll look at that.
Okay,
before
I
you-
just knew that was somewhere in there. Just so you know, too, I appreciate you wanting to be involved in the Picken County commissions and committees. It's a great opportunity to get to know the county, to get to know staff, and get to know people in the community. This committee doesn't meet a lot. I would like, when we have issues with voting systems, electronic voting systems, and Janice will get the election committee together. So it would be nice if they were more involved. They do oversee elections. They stand in the room and make sure that procedures are being followed. But it's interesting. So hopefully it'll be your first foot in the door, and we can get you involved in more. That would be great.
Okay, I think so too.
Also, yeah, looking at your resume, I thought, well, maybe this would be an opportunity for you to have some input into the election commission, and maybe the commission could become better because of it. Just having your knowledge and experience in political science things.
Okay.
So
That would be
I
great.
mean, we do have like bylaws that has a certain charge to fulfill, but.
Okay.
Michael?
So John, it says here, under the election commission role is to perform duties set out in Article 3 of the Picken County. What are those duties? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head.
We're testing.
Give me just.
You have
They
it yet?
oversee elections.
I
You have
got
it
the
yet?
bylaws. I got the
Do you have it
bylaws.
yet?
So the functions under the bylaws, receive in writing the commission's function and responsibilities are as follows. Receive in writing any appeals within 3 business days after the decision of the act complained of, in relation to an election. Hear all evidence and make a timely determination on the appeal. And so, in the past, the Elections Commission has not met often. Most recently it was around open records requests made by one of our citizens and whether the ballots could be viewed or not.
So it can be, although it doesn't meet often, it can be serious responsibility. And the burden can be a burden that you'll feel, so.
No, it's a big deal when it's.
So be
a big
prepared for
deal.
that, when and if it ever happens again.
So thank you for volunteering for that.
I don't know if it's appropriate to ask your political affiliation. I noticed that Roger Nicholson on the board is a Republican, is my understanding, although it doesn't say on our chart. And then two of the members, it says unaffiliated. And then we had one position that's vacant for a Democrat and one position vacant that doesn't specify, so.
That's what we'll need to look into, and then.
And maybe we're not even allowed to ask what your political affiliation is for this, I don't know.
Well, I think you're allowed to ask. What I would encourage you to do, though, is that, explore Dallas's, kind of capabilities to weigh the types of decisions that would be put in front of him as a member of the commission, and maybe offline we can ask the question and have that information available for you as you see. But right now, I don't think you have an unbalanced body regardless of what appointment you make, and so To me, it's more about evaluating the fit.
No matter what Dallas's party is or lack of party, it still would be a balanced board because right now it is, we
Right.
have a balance.
It's not all one affiliation. Yeah.
Okay. So, George.
Oh, I have a question. Dallas, thanks for applying again. I remember when we interviewed you the last time, I think we were for the Financial Advisory Board. I just curious again, given the extent of your background and your resume and your education, so I just want to see the nexus. So you've got a PhD in poli-sci, but you're a wilderness land manager, or?
Yeah, I'm a wilderness, that's my title, I'm the Wilderness Program Manager for Challenge Aspen. So basically my job, they have quite a bit of property up above Rudai Reservoir, about 136 acres. And so my job is to maintain and take care of that property and any of the programming associated with it.
Where is that?
It's 17.4 miles up the Frying Pan Road. It doesn't have a specific address, it's just one of those remote places. But if you go up and above Rudai, and just as you're starting to come down,
Up on the left.
it's on the left-hand side.
On the left-hand side, there's a road that goes up.
Yep.
Is that like an old Boy Scout camp back up there, or?
That I don't know, I don't think so. I know that,
It used to be.
I dug into the history there, maybe, I don't know. I do know at one point in history there was a sawmill back in there.
Yeah.
I don't know about a Boy Scout camp, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
Not a bad place to work.
No, I was just up there this morning, it's beautiful.
So, any further questions
No,
from the
I'm
board?
good.
Um,
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Okay.
So, thank you very much for applying, and it takes us, we don't get back to you immediately, but within a couple of weeks, we'd probably be making a decision on.
Okay. Thank you for your time, I appreciate
Great,
it.
thanks.
Okay,
Have a
thank you.
great afternoon.
See you again.
Let's see, we don't have Ellen here right at the moment for the
Not due for
Mid-Valley
agenda.
Metro District.
Boy, that was a quick.
We could go into open discussion items while we're waiting for Ellen to get here.
Yeah, those could be short too. I just remind the board that on June 3rd, we're having our progressive lunch that we're starting to advertise. You'll see some advertisements coming out in the newspaper and through PSAs. We'll also, I believe later this week, be releasing our Pick and Connect outreach on facilities. We completed a video with several staff kind of doing a tour of, outlining some of the challenges that we're facing and trying to address with our facilities project. So our outreach is really starting in earnest on that now. And that was really the only open discussion item I had for you. I can try and email.
John, could you outline the progressive lunch again for me, what the purpose is and what we're doing with it?
Yeah, so the progressive lunch is we're going to invite interested citizens in to basically do a tour of our facilities with staff. So we can talk about some of the improvements in customer service that we're hoping to be able to make. Some of the challenges that we're facing with our facilities. So what a progressive lunch is you have to walk to those various locations to get the different parts of your lunch. And so we will have it catered. We will start and finish in this room. We'll be going over to look at our public safety, the old courthouse and where the sheriff's department and police departments and 9th Judicial District's located. Go over to City Hall, look at our community development department, come back over here and look at what's happening with elections and the clerk's office, some of the key areas that we're really looking at, and end up back here with an overall discussion and opportunity to get input from the citizens that participated about what would they like to see as we plan and design our new facilities.
And are you going to film it?
No, but we did do a video with a similar tour, basically. So we've got, that's staff-led. We thought it was going to potentially be awkward for participants to start and stop and do retakes and such. So we did do a video with staff of the same kinds of areas, and that will be on our website.
Yeah, some sort of informal video, and I don't think it needs to be set up, but I think so it can't be a very large public that's going to do this tour, so the larger public would like to see, I think, questions posed, if those people are representative or not representative, or, I mean, I'd just give it a thought, because, and then all you'd have to do is edit it a little bit, maybe down, because you don't need to have videos of people walking from building to building, but I think, since it is a fairly discrete group, that unless you had them every day, you wouldn't really reach much of the community. I don't know.
It's a good thought.
That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah, let's put some thought into how we might do that. And we wanted to also be respectful of the folks who are participating. Sometimes they're more or less comfortable being on.
Right, well, maybe you just have whatever the county presentation is, and we know the, and if,
Well, yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just thinking, well, we'd need 10,000 aggressive lunches to really reach people, that's all I'm telling you.
And that's why we are doing the one online component, but I appreciate what you're saying as well. How do you capture the dialogue that's taking place between staff and the citizens that are participating? So we'll think on that.
I had one item that's would be a short one. It's just to toss out an idea. Sheriff Joe DeSalvo approached me yesterday after the Memorial Day dedication. This is his idea. The Hutsford Vets was having problems with vehicles, and Joe said the Sheriff's Department is very soon going to be rolling over some of their vehicles and putting them out into the auction. And he would like us to consider donating one of their trucks to the Hutsford Vets. He thought that would perhaps be a better use of the truck than just putting it out to auction, because it's well maintained ones, and it would require, I mean, approaching Paul Anderson and see, because they have had a vehicle donated to them that he talked about yesterday, but whether they could use 2 vehicles and whether it would be appropriate to have one from the Sheriff's Department go to them. But it's an idea. I thought I'd toss it out there.
Yeah, they have 2 vehicles now. They had one donated, they had 2 different vehicles donated. Yeah, I would definitely check to see if they have the capacity to absorb another vehicle and maintain it and keep it on the road and in need. But if that's something the county can do, I know we donated an ambulance a couple years back to Burlington, Mississippi, so maybe it's something we can do.
It's certainly at the board's discretion. It's an asset of the counties, and what we do with them now is we put them back out to auction, and we roll those funds back over into equipment replacement. The board can certainly, allocate those resources, but yeah, we can reach out to Paul and see if they're high mile vehicles at the point that we're turning them over, but they have been well maintained, and so if it's the board's wish, we could certainly explore that, and then you would have to adopt a resolution basically transferring that ownership.
Yeah, I think we should get, investigate it and get the facts on it, and then make a decision at that point. Maybe talk to Joe DeSalvo too about his idea. Yeah, George.
A short one. It sort of ties with future agendas. I forgot. There is, at least what I read in the paper a week ago or so, there's it looks like there's going to be yet another bike tour going through our county, as well as starting in Carbondale, and the route is, at least what I read in the paper, was not very clear. It's going to go starting Cloverdale and going up Snowmass Creek and going up Capitol Creek, and I'm assuming it's going to use the Rio Grande Trail. So I've got I talked to Mike Kramer, and at that point last week, the permit was sitting on his desk, and I was concerned about how we were going to, and this was on a Saturday in June, I think June 20th or something, this event's supposed to take place. It's from an out-of-town organization, and the quote from the organizer was that they're hoping that this event is going to grow by leaps and bounds because of the popularity of wanting to come up and experience our great roads to ride. So that leads to perhaps yet another discussion on how we want to manage and permit special events, certainly from outside organizations that are coming in and monopolizing our trails and our roads and the use of our sheriff's department, public safety, ambulances, and everything else. So that's a concern of mine. And I don't know if Mike Kramer has any additional information in terms of how this road tour is going to be facilitated and managed from a safety point of view. But I think it's a discussion we should revisit again on the future agendas and perhaps get an update from Mike Kramer sooner than later.
Yeah, it's going to be happening soon, so we should have that soon.
Exactly, and I don't know whether he's issued a permit, and again, it's sort of like there's an assumption that this group has applied for a permit, but they're going to run this tour sort of regardless. They've already got their marketing pieces out, they've already accepted monies, whatever, but again, it's sort of like, you know, is the tail wagging the dog on this, and or is there an expectation that anybody wants to run an event up here in Pickens County, they could just go ahead and promote it and then ask for a permit and ask for forgiveness first or later. So anyway,
Another consideration on that, if it is held in June, the chip and seal project on Snowmass and Capitol Creek roads is underway now, and it's scheduled to go through the end of June. So they're liable to be riding on.
Well, that may deter future riders.
Yeah, they might have a whole bunch of tar and gravel stuck on their bikes going through brand new chip and seal or something.
Well, and we do try and coordinate those kinds of issues with our construction and permitting, and it is, I mean, it's a challenge, George, as you're laying out, and we've tried, I think, to have those discussions and put kind of rules and parameters in place, and I think we've struggled with that historically, but we can certainly bring back. There's really two events that the board has been kind of looking at the permits before they've been issued, and that's the Pro Challenge bike race and X Games. We typically are doing briefings. Most of the other, really all of the other special events permits, unless they're requesting a refund of the fees as a nonprofit, are being reviewed administratively. So there's a lot of activity happening every year, particularly this time of year going into it. And you know, we talked about kind of how, you know, do we want to put the brakes on? Do we not want to put the brakes on? Is this, what's the balance between economic vitality and impact to the community, which I think is, you know, George, what you're bringing up. And we can definitely bring that discussion back. I think we're going to need to really kind of create a vision, I think, of how we see these kinds of special events fitting in to our community, and see if we can't build some rules around that, because I think we constantly struggle between visions of it being an economic driver and also the impact to the community. We haven't quite landed on, so what does it look like if we're successful? You know, what does it look like for our community? What does it look like for economic vitality?
Just to weigh in on that, I think that as part of the master plan updates, you'll be seeing some of the caucus areas would like to weigh in on, specifically on special events and benefits and impacts. And use of the Rio Grande has come up in discussions. So you may be getting some feedback from the caucuses on that very topic.
Yeah, at the same time, we did the project where we, surveyed users
Right.
and such through the Open Space and Trails program, and we got different kind of feedback. And I think that's a struggle that you guys have as policymakers and such, is, you're getting different feedback from different audiences about the benefits and impact. So happy to bring it back. I think it's going to take a few bites at the apple in terms of probably longer term discussion, not just on this event, but how do you balance those things?
Right, and I just wonder whether at least we can get an update and see the status
On
of
this
the
event.
permit of this event, and if it's going to be permitted, what sort of resources are going to need to be allocated, how this is going to unfold, because again, it's on a Saturday, mid-June. It's certainly going to impact not only Rio Grande Trail, but some of our secondary county roads.
Well, and it may be what we should be doing, and fine bringing this event back. But the fact is we've got a number of events that happen on weekends and affect trails and roads, whether it be, like it's called Ragnar relays and those sorts of things. And so, maybe a start so we can start to get our hands around what the impacts are, although it'll extend the work for you and staff, and probably the wait time for applicants would be setting some parameters for permits that you guys want to have brought in front of you. Because I suspect, George, that this is one that you've seen and heard about, but there are probably others that meet the same kind of criteria, and we want to be sure we're treating all those kind of the same way.
Michael?
Well, that's a good thing for our website, is to have a calendar of potential special events, or a calendar of scheduled special events, or something for the entire county to look at and to be able to do plans.
Yeah, and we are able to provide to applicants now, and of course, the challenge there is that you have special events being planned in multiple jurisdictions. You may have a special event housed entirely within a city limit that may be at the same time as an event being applied for in the county that may also go into the city limits. And so we've got those calendars together now, not available on the website yet. That's the next step.
Okay. Any other items for
Good.
open discussion? Okay, Ellen, you could come up to the table there now. On our last discussion before we head down to Elgibel is Mid-Valley Metro District Expansion Referral Comments.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, so we are seeking board review and comments and ultimately approval of the letter in your packet. It is a comment letter regarding the Mid-Valley Metropolitan District's request for service expansion, excuse me, to accommodate the tree farm planned unit development. That is, at this point, a development that's proposed for 400 residential units and approximately 134,000 square feet of mixed-use commercial, and the latest iteration actually has a hotel as a part of that as a part of that proposal. Comments are due tomorrow. By way of background, the district service extension request is being processed concurrently with the preliminary plan for the tree farm PUD. The board weighed in on that preliminary plan proposal in December of 2014 and actually recommended denial based on several concerns. The preliminary plan is just now coming up for review before the Eagle County Planning and Zoning Commission early June. I think it's June 4th. From there it will go on to a review by their Board of County Commissioners, and then on to final plat if it is approved at a preliminary plan. So no hearing has been scheduled yet for the Metro District service expansion.
but the comments are due tomorrow. The attached letter, attached to your packet, reiterates that the Board of County Commissioners have not supported the preliminary plan for the tree farm historically. I think George actually went to the sketch plan hearing before the Eagle County Commissioners and expressed our concerns. However, recognizing that approval of the PUD is a potential outcome, the comment letter recommends that surface expansion only be allowed in the event that the tree farm PUD is approved. So it's not a service expansion that is approved absent of a specific, site-specific plan approval. Also, because of the extensive amount of water that will be used to service the scale of development, we've recommended that stringent water conservation measures be required as part of the service agreement, and that consideration be given to dedicating a percentage of residential sale proceeds to the Roaring Fork Conservancy or a similar water conservation entity to maintain minimum stream flows or water quality monitoring stations on the Roaring Fork River. So that's where the comment letter direction goes, and if the board has any comments, recommendations for modification, we can go ahead and make changes and bring it back for your, I guess, for chair's signature tomorrow and ship it off to Eagle County. Comments?
Patty?
Do we have any idea where the water, the clean water, is coming from? I mean, that's a lot of water.
It is a lot of water. The district, the metro, well, as I understand it, the tree farm would be required to provide some of their water rights to the district. Their water rights, they apparently own a pretty substantial share of the Robinson Ditch water rights. The Metro District potable water rights primarily come from wells, as again, just based on my review of the application. So beyond that, I can't tell you. Apparently, there is
Substantial water out there somewhere.
adequate water to provide the service according to the district.
And that district is the same district that serves downtown Basalt, so the new hotel and any of that development would also be then impacting that same district, water and sand district?
I believe so. I know that.
I don't think there's any other water provider or sand provider in that.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right, Patty.
So that's a lot of potential future impact to the water and sand district. That's a lot.
It
Yeah.
is a lot. It's a yes, and the district already covers this PUD area, but they would have to expand service lines basically to
Lots of
accommodate.
infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael?
So how does this referral come to us, Emily?
It comes to us as a result of, I think we have, I don't know if we have an IGA, but with Eagle County to get referrals on substantial subdivisions of this nature. And so, yeah, it came to us from planning staff. I think we may have an IGA with Eagle County. John, I don't know if you can help me with that, but for referrals of
We do have
where
an
there is
IGA with Eagle County.
yeah, where there's a substantial subdivision of this nature.
And so this is a subset of the major proposal, which is the.
Yes, thank you. Because the district is requesting service expansion to accommodate that PUD, it has come to us. Any other questions?
Seems to me like they're putting the cart before the horse, doing the Metro District wanting to extend the facilities to the property before anything's been approved on it. And do you have any sense about why they're proceeding along this line?
Well, interestingly enough, that apparently the district received a 1041 approval some years back when the tree farm first came in with something like 250 residential units and less commercial square footage, they received a 1041 approval several years back for that service, and now they are coming in to expand on the original approval. So as a practical matter, they talk about putting the cart before the horse. I believe the district got approval to expand several years back. So I don't know. I assume that it is so that in the event that a PUD approval is obtained, that the water service and wastewater agreements are in place. I think the preliminary plan is akin to our detailed submission plan in Picken County, where you have to show that you can provide infrastructure for the subdivision proposal. And so perhaps they are required as part of preliminary plan to at least show that service is not only available but in place before they get to final plat review. I'm not that intimately familiar with Eagle County's subdivision process, but that's a guess.
Now I know the town of Basalt would like that project to be within the city limits, and the project developer doesn't want it to be, wants it to be an unincorporated Eagle County.
Mm-hmm.
If the project did end up in Basalt city limits, would it be the Basalt Metro District, or would it still be the Mid-Valley Metro
The same
District that would
It
provide?
would, yeah, I spoke with Basalt, actually, I asked the same question, and they do not have Basalt does not have the capacity, and this would be the district serving in either case.
Okay. Well, I think our letter makes sense to have it provisional that, if the thing does get approved, obviously they need to have water and sewer connection, and this would be, our giving approval to that, if the whole project is approved. Yeah.
I just hope that the Mid-Valley is ready for an enormous, enormous impact. I mean, the impacts on roads, the impact to their services, city, if they don't annex, they're gonna have to have sheriffs, more sheriffs. 400 homes and all that commercial space is gonna have a huge demand for lots of local, not and beyond, public safety is gonna be hugely impacted. Fire, ambulance, and law enforcement. It's going to be huge. Plus, just driving by that impact, it's bad enough for me on one side to see all that growth, and now it's just going to, that whole core is going to be slammed. And I know progress is inevitable in some places, but it's pretty huge.
The Board of County Commissioners weighed in at sketch plan.
Yeah, I've read them.
And recommended denial and a preliminary plan, which hasn't gone forward yet, but again, recommending denial. And I understand from the Eagle County staff that they're anticipating 3 or 4 Planning and Zoning Commission meetings and 3 or 4 Board of County Commissioner meetings, so there will be more time to weigh in if any of our board members want to or would like to direct staff to go to meetings to provide comments. We can. There will be more opportunity, but you're right, clearly, Patty. If this goes forward,
They have their own planning and zoning commission on this side, right?
Right.
So hopefully, though, the Eagle County commissioners will hold their meetings on here on this.
They happen to pass.
I think that's critical that they continue that. I think that's wise of them to do so.
And I don't know if this will come up as part of your discussion today.
I think we're leaving it out of today.
Not this particular project, we can't, but we could talk about some of the impacts, and starting with affordable living ideas and things like that.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you. So
Ellen.
I will get this printed on your letterhead and is it all right if I get it to Steve tomorrow for signature? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Are we done? Is that it?
Okay, that's everything on our agenda, unless somebody has anything else to bring up. And do we have,
Where are we meeting?
I need a ride down, I don't need a ride.
Town hall.
back all the way, part of the way back.
No, where are we meeting
Uh,
here to get a ride?
I think we're meeting at the